There is a sound that burning parchment makes, a whisper, almost gentle, as the edges blacken and curl. I hear it now, watching flames consume the psalter I copied myself, letter by letter, through 2 winters in the scriptorium. The gold leaf flakes away like dying leaves. Smoke rises through the shattered clerestory, carrying prayers I no longer believe God hears. Outside, the screaming has not stopped. It has been 3 hours since they breached the eastern gate. 3 hours, and already the cobblestones run red. They say that in the moment before death, a man sees his life with terrible clarity. I do not know if I am dying, but I know that every prayer I have offered, every candle I have lit, every promise of salvation I have spoken, all of it is ash. The heathens are inside the walls. They are inside the minster, and I am alone with the smoke and the blood and the awful knowledge that God has abandoned us. I am Brother Eadred, priest of the Minster Church of St. Peter in York, in the kingdom of Northumbria. For 12 years I have served here, copying manuscripts, tending the altar, hearing confessions, burying the dead. I have witnessed kings crowned and kings deposed. I have seen famine and feast, pestilence and prosperity. I thought I understood suffering. I thought I knew what it meant to fear for my soul. But nothing prepared me for this. For the moment when the gates fell and the world ended. For the smoke and fire and terrible joy in the voices of the men who have come to unmake everything we built. Today is the 1st day of November, in the year of our Lord, 866, the Feast of All Saints. This morning I rose before dawn for lauds. I lit the candles. I sang the psalms. I broke bread with my brothers in the refectory, tasting the salt herring and dark rye, listening to Brother Osric read from the Gospel of Matthew. The autumn rain was falling, as it had fallen for 3 days, turning the streets to mud and the river Ouse to brown surge. The city smelled of wood smoke and pig dung and wet thatch. Ordinary smells, safe smells, the smells of a world that still made sense. Now I smell only blood and burning. They came at dawn. I was in the bell tower when I heard the horns. Not our horns, not the clear bronze note that calls the faithful to prayer, but something deeper, wilder, a sound like wolves howling. I looked north, beyond the Roman walls, beyond the earthworks our kings have never bothered to repair. The morning mist clung to the ground, grey and cold. But through it I could see them, hundreds of them, thousands perhaps, men on foot and on horseback, streaming across the fields like ants on carrion. Their shields caught the pale light, round shields painted red and black and yellow, marked with ravens and serpents and other heathen symbols I did not recognize. The Great Army. We had heard rumors all autumn. Traders from the south brought stories of Vikings wintering in East Anglia, of King Edmund paying them tribute, of ships beached along the coast like a forest of dragon prows. We heard they were led by the sons of Ragnar, that they sought vengeance for some ancient wrong. We heard they numbered in the thousands, that they moved like a plague, consuming everything in their path. But York felt far from the sea. York had walls. York had 2 kings, even if they hated each other. And surely that meant we had 2 armies to defend us. We were fools. I rang the bell. I pulled the rope with both hands, feeling the thick hemp bite into my palms, and the bronze voice of St. Peter sang out across the city. Danger, danger, danger. Below, people spilled into the streets, shopkeepers and tanners and fishwives, calls stumbling from alehouses, children clutching their mothers' skirts. I saw old Wulfric the baker pointing north, his face white as his flour. I saw Hilda, the weaver, drop her basket, onions rolling across the mud. I saw Father Cuthbert emerge from the minster, his thin face tilted up toward me, his lips moving in prayer I could not hear. And I saw the gates, the eastern gate, the northern gate, both standing open. Open because it was market day. Open because we were at peace. Open because our kings were too busy fighting each other to care about the defenses of their city. The heathens poured through like water through a broken dam. I have never seen men move so fast. They did not march. They ran, weapons raised, voices lifted in a battle cry that made my bones ache. I saw them reach the first houses, the wattle and daub cottages outside the walls where the poorest families lived. I saw axes swinging. I saw torches thrown onto thatched roofs. I saw a woman, Athelfled, who sold eggs at the market. I saw her trying to run with a baby in her arms, and I saw the spear take her between the shoulder blades. She fell forward. The baby rolled from her grasp. A man in a leather jerkin, beard braided with rings, stepped over her body and kept running. I could not look away. God forgive me, I could not look away. The city guard, what little we had, tried to form a shield wall near the eastern gate. Perhaps 30 men, farmers and craftsmen pressed into service, holding spears they barely knew how to use. I watched them brace themselves, shields overlapping, the way the old songs say warriors should stand. I watched the Vikings hit them like a hammer on glass. The line broke in seconds. Men scattered, throwing down their weapons, running for their lives. The heathens cut them down as they ran. I saw Edgar the blacksmith, a big man, strong as an ox. I saw him swing his hammer at a Viking's head. He missed. The Viking's axe did not. Edgar's skull split like a melon, and he was still twitching as the man stepped over him, laughing. I had seen that man before. Not his face, I was too far away for that. But his stance, the way he moved. Confident, practiced, a man who killed the way I pray, thoughtlessly, out of habit, because it is what he does. I climbed down from the tower, my hands shaking so badly I nearly fell. The minster was in chaos. People were flooding through the doors, seeking sanctuary, old men and women, children sobbing, wounded guards bleeding onto the stone floor. Father Cuthbert stood at the altar, his arms spread wide, calling for calm in a voice that quavered like a candle flame in wind. Brother Osric was barring the doors, his face slick with sweat. Brother Wilfred was already gathering the relics, the bones of St. Oswald, the silver cross given by King Edwin, the illuminated gospels we had copied over generations. They will not harm the church, Father Cuthbert said, his voice rising above the din. God's house is sacred. Even heathens know. The doors exploded inward, not with axes, with shoulders. 6 men, 7, their faces flushed with exertion and something else, something bright and terrible. They had stripped off their mail, or perhaps never worn any. They wore leather and wool, stained with mud and blood, some of it fresh, some old and crusted brown. Their hair hung in braids, in tangles, plastered to their skulls with sweat. One had a broken nose, the bone jutting white through torn skin. Another was missing teeth. A third had eyes so pale they looked blind. They saw the altar. They saw the silver. They smiled. "No," Father Cuthbert whispered. "No, please." The first man grabbed him by the throat and threw him aside like a sack of grain. Cuthbert hit the wall with a crack I felt in my chest. He slid down. His head bent at an angle heads should not bend, and did not move again. Brother Osric lunged forward, shouting something. A prayer, a curse, I do not know. A Viking caught him with a backhanded blow that knocked him sprawling. Blood sprayed from his mouth, teeth skittering across the floor like dice. He tried to rise. A boot came down on his neck. I heard the crunch. I heard his breath stop. I stood frozen, watching. I should have moved. I should have fought, or fled, or died like a man. Instead, I stood there, clutching a psalter to my chest, like it could protect me, watching the heathens tear apart everything I had spent my life building. They ripped the silver cross from the altar. They smashed the reliquary of St. Oswald, scattering bone fragments across the floor like grain for chickens. They grabbed the tapestries and the candles and the chalices, stuffing them into sacks, whooping and laughing and speaking in their harsh, guttural tongue. One of them found the wine we used for communion, good wine, blessed and precious, and he took a long drink straight from the jar, then spat it onto the floor. Another found the Gospels. He held them up, frowning at the illuminated letters, the gold leaf shining in the candlelight. Then he tore out a page, and another, and another. He fed them to the candle flames, watching them burn with the same expression a child wears watching snowfall. I had seen men like these before. 3 years passed, in the great hall at King Osbert's fortress, 15 miles north of York. I had been summoned to record a charter, a grant of land to the church. I sat in the corner with my quill and ink, trying to be invisible while the king and his thanes argued about taxes and tribute, and the eternal grinding question of who owed what to whom. Osbert was a hard man, lean and grey-eyed, with a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. He had ruled Northumbria for 7 years, and he ruled it the way a farmer works a stubborn field, with sweat and curses and the constant fear that the harvest will fail. His thanes feared him. His enemies respected him. The church tolerated him because he left us alone. But that day, I saw him afraid. A messenger arrived from the south, mud-splattered and exhausted, with news of Vikings raiding the coast. Not a small band, an army. Hundreds of ships, thousands of men. They had landed in East Anglia, the messenger said, and King Edmund had bought them off with horses and silver. Now they were moving. Where? Osbert demanded. North, my lord, toward Mercia, toward us. The hall went quiet. I could hear the fire crackling, the wind rattling the shutters. Osbert looked around at his men, good fighters, most of them, scarred and weathered, and I saw him calculating. How many could he muster? How fast could they march? Could he hold the walls of York against an army that size? Then one of his thanes, a young man named Hunwald, arrogant and stupid, laughed. Let them come, he said. We have walls. We have God. What do we have to fear from pagan dogs? Osbert did not laugh. He looked at Hunwald with something like pity. You have never fought Vikings, he said quietly. I have. On the coast, 10 years ago. They do not fight like us. They do not care about honor or glory or dying well. They care about winning, and they are very, very good at it. But Hunwald was already drunk, and the other thanes were nodding along, eager for a fight, and Osbert let the matter drop. What else could he do? A king who shows fear loses his throne. 2 weeks later, Ella seized power. Osbert's own cousin, a man he had trusted, a man he had raised to alderman. Ella claimed the throne was his by right, that Osbert had stolen church lands and oppressed the people. The Archbishop of York, God curse him, supported the usurper. Half the thanes switched sides. Osbert fled north with what remained of his army, and York, caught between two kings, forgot about the Vikings. Until this morning. I am back in the present, in the minster, watching the heathens loot and burn. One of them notices me. He is older than the others, his beard shot with grey, a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. He says something in his language, a question perhaps, or a joke. The others laugh. He walks toward me. He is not hurrying. He knows I have nowhere to go. I back away, my spine hitting the wall. The psalter is still in my hands. I think, absurdly, of the hours I spent copying it. The cramped fingers, the aching back, the satisfaction of getting the letters just right. Each one a small prayer, each word a brick in the house of God. The Viking reaches out and takes it from me. Gently, almost. He looks at the cover, leather, tooled with a simple cross. And then he looks at me. His eyes are blue. Not pale like ice, but deep blue, like the sea on a clear day. He tosses the psalter into the fire. I do not mean to cry out, but I do. A small, broken sound, like a mouse caught in a trap. He smiles. Then he turns and walks away. I watch my work burn. The pages curl and blacken. The ink runs. The words dissolve into smoke. And I think, this is what the end of the world looks like. By midday, the city has fallen silent. Not the silence of peace, the silence of shock, of people hiding in cellars and attics, holding their breath and praying the heathens will not find them. The screaming has stopped. The bell no longer rings. Even the rain has ceased, leaving only grey sky and the smell of wet ash. I am still in the minster. I do not know why they did not kill me. Perhaps they did not consider me worth the effort. Perhaps they thought a priest cowering in the corner was more amusing alive than dead. Or perhaps, and this is the thought that gnaws at me, Perhaps God spared me so I would witness what comes next. The Vikings have made the minster their headquarters. They dragged tables from somewhere, set them up in the nave, and now they sit there drinking our communion wine and dividing their plunder. I huddle in the alcove behind the altar, hidden by shadows, watching them. There are perhaps 20 in here now, though hundreds more roam the streets outside. Some are young, barely old enough to grow beards. Others are grizzled veterans, their faces maps of old scars. They speak in their harsh tongue, laughing and arguing, passing a leather flask back and forth. One of them, a tall man with arms thick as tree trunks, holds up a silver candlestick and shouts something. The others cheer. He swings it like a club, testing its weight, then tosses it into a pile of loot near the door. Crosses, chalices, holy relics, all heaped together like kindling. A younger Viking, thin and wiry, with a face like a weasel, picks up a gold-trimmed cope, the one Father Cuthbert wore on feast days, and drapes it over his shoulders. He parades around, mimicking the way Cuthbert used to bless the congregation, and the others howl with laughter. He makes the sign of the cross, then spits on the floor. I close my eyes. I pray. Not for deliverance, I am beyond that now, but for understanding. Why has this happened? What sin have we committed that God would allow this desecration? Is it the greed of our kings, the pride of our priests? My own failures, my own lack of faith? But no answer comes. It never does. Footsteps, heavy boots on stone. I open my eyes and see two men entering the minster, not Vikings, but Saxons. I recognize one, Ealdorman Beornoth, one of Ella's chief supporters, a fat man who used to visit the minster to confess his adultery while his wife waited outside. He is sweating, his face pale and blotchy, and he is speaking in rapid, desperate Saxon to the man beside him. The second man is a Viking, but he is dressed differently from the others. Better mail, a helmet with decorative inlay, a sword at his hip instead of an axe. He is young, perhaps 30, with sharp features and dark hair bound in a single thick braid. He listens to Beornoth with a faint smile, saying nothing. Beornoth is pleading. I catch fragments. King Ella is willing to negotiate. Tribute in silver, horses, grain. If you will only spare the city. The Viking lets him finish. Then he says something in accented but clear Saxon. Where is Ella now? Beornoth stammers. He is gathering his forces, my lord. He and King Osbert have agreed to put aside their differences. They will march on York within the month. A great army. A month. The Viking's smile widens. And in the meantime, we should wait patiently? Perhaps leave your city unharmed, out of respect for your kings, who are too busy fighting each other to defend their own walls. My lord, please. The Viking waves a hand, cutting him off. He says something in Norse, and two of his men grab Beornoth by the arms. The alderman shrieks, struggling, but they drag him out of the minster without effort. His cries echo down the street, then stop abruptly. The Viking, I will learn later that his name is Ivar, though whether he is truly one of Ragnar's sons I cannot say, walks to the altar. He studies the bloodstains where Father Cuthbert died. He picks up a piece of the shattered reliquary, turns it over in his hands, then tosses it aside. God did not protect you, he says, speaking to the empty air. Or perhaps to me, hidden in the shadows. Your walls did not protect you. Your kings did not protect you. You have nothing. He pauses. But you are welcome to stay and pray. Perhaps your God will come. Perhaps he will strike me down where I stand. He waits. The minster is silent. He laughs, not cruelly, but with genuine amusement, and walks out. I stay hidden until dark. Through the broken windows, I hear the sounds of the city being transformed, hammering, soaring, shouting in Norse. The Vikings are not just looting, they are building, fortifying, they are staying. When night falls, I risk leaving my hiding place. The minster is empty now, the Vikings having moved their operation elsewhere. Bodies still lie where they fell. Father Cuthbert, Brother Osric, 3 women who had sought sanctuary and died for it. I cannot bury them. I cannot even cover them. I have no tools, no strength, no hope. I slip out through the side door and into the streets. York is unrecognizable. Buildings burn, their flames casting wild shadows on the Roman walls. Corpses lie in doorways, in gutters, sprawled across the cobblestones like broken dolls. I see a child, no more than 5 years old, curled against her mother's body, both dead. I see an old man hanging from a beam, his hands tied behind his back. I see a dog eating something I do not look at closely. But I also see Vikings working. They have blocked off the eastern gate with timber and stone, building it higher, stronger. They have torn down houses to clear fields of fire. They have dug pits and filled them with sharpened stakes. They are turning our city into a fortress. I understand now. They are not raiders. Raiders come, they take, they leave. These men have come to stay. York is theirs now, and we, those of us who survived, we are theirs too. I think of Ivar's words. You have nothing. He is right. I make my way through the shadows to the northern edge of the city, where a few Saxon houses still stand intact. I knock on a door I know, the home of Godric, a thane who served Osbert, a warrior, a good man. If anyone knows what is happening, what we should do, it will be him. The door cracks open. A woman's face, Godric's wife, Eadred, peers out. Her eyes are red from crying. "Brother Eadred," she whispers. "Thank God. Come in, quickly." Inside, a dozen people huddle around a small fire. Godric sits near the hearth, his sword across his knees, his face grim. When he sees me, he nods. "You are alive," he says. "Good. We need witnesses." Witnesses to what? To what comes next. He gestures to the others, mostly men, a few women, all dressed for travel. "We are leaving tonight, heading north to find Osbert. If the kings unite, if they can raise an army." "An army to do what?" I hear myself say. "The Vikings have fortified the city. They have supplies, weapons, numbers. Even if Osbert and Ella field every man in Northumbria, how will they breach those walls?" Godric's jaw tightens. "Then we die trying. What else can we do? Kneel to heathens, let them turn our churches into stables and our children into thralls?" I have no answer. He is right. Of course he is right. But I have seen the Vikings fight. I have seen how they move, how they laugh, how they kill without hesitation or remorse. They are not invincible, but they are not men we can defeat with courage alone. "Will you come with us?" Eadred asks. "Please, brother, we need your prayers." I want to say yes. I want to flee this ruined city, to find Osbert, to believe that God will grant us victory if we fight with righteous hearts. But I look at these people, good people, faithful people, and I know most of them will not survive the winter. Osbert and Ella will unite, yes, because they have no choice. They will raise an army, and that army will march on York, and the Vikings will slaughter them. I know this the way I know my own name. "I will stay," I say quietly. Someone must remember what happened here." Godric studies me for a long moment, then nods. "Then remember us too, when the time comes." They leave an hour later, slipping out through a gap in the northern wall. I watch them go, shadows disappearing into shadows, and I wonder if I will ever see any of them again. I return to the minster. It is still empty, still desecrated, but it is the only home I have left. I find a corner that is not soaked in blood, and I sit with my back to the wall, and I wait for dawn. Winter comes. The Vikings settle into York like wolves into a den. They do not massacre the remaining population. They need us to work, to cook, to maintain the city, but we are not free. We are tolerated. We exist at their pleasure. I see things I wish I could forget. Women forced to serve in the Vikings' halls. Men pressed into labor, rebuilding walls, hauling timber. Children taken as hostages to ensure cooperation. The minster becomes a storehouse for weapons and grain. The altar where I once stood to consecrate the Eucharist is now piled with spears. But I also see something unexpected: order. The Vikings do not rule through chaos. They appoint leaders, settle disputes, establish trade. Ships arrive from the north, bringing goods, taking plunder. York begins to transform from a Saxon city into something else. Something hybrid, half Christian, half pagan, neither one thing nor the other. And I wait, because I know the kings will come. Rumors reach us in February. Osbert and Ella have reconciled. They have sworn oaths before God and assembled an army. Every able-bodied man in Northumbria, from the coast to the mountains. Thousands of warriors, carrying the banners of their thanes and the blessings of the church. They are marching south. They will be here by spring. The Vikings do not seem concerned. Ivar, who I have learned is indeed a leader, perhaps the leader, spends his days inspecting the defenses, drilling his men, sending scouts to watch the roads. He moves through the city with the confidence of a man who knows exactly what will happen next. I pray for Osbert. I pray for Ella. I pray that God will grant them victory, that the heathens will be driven back into the sea, that York will be restored to the faithful. But I do not believe my prayers. March arrives cold and wet. The river Ouse swells with snowmelt, turning the fields outside the city to marsh. And on the 21st day of the month, the Northumbrian army appears on the northern ridge. I am in the minster when the horns sound. Our horns this time, bright and clear, calling the faithful to war. I climb the tower, the same tower where I stood 6 months ago, watching the Vikings arrive. And I look north. They are magnificent. Thousands of men in mail and leather, shields gleaming, spears like a forest of iron. Banners snap in the wind, the cross of St. Oswald, the worm of Northumbria, the personal standards of 100 thanes. I see Osbert near the front, mounted on a grey horse, his sword raised. I see Ella beside him, the two kings united at last. I see priests walking among the ranks, blessing the warriors, calling down God's wrath on the heathens. For a moment, just a moment, I allow myself to hope. The Northumbrians advance. They do not charge, they march, shields locked, moving with the discipline of men who have trained for this. They reach the outer defenses, the stakes and ditches the Vikings dug. They hesitate. Then the gates open. Not our gates, the Vikings' gates. The eastern gate, the one they fortified, swings wide, and the Northumbrians see what looks like opportunity. A gap in the defenses, a way in. Osbert shouts something I cannot hear. The army surges forward, and I realize, with sick certainty, what is about to happen. It is a trap. The Northumbrians pour through the gate, hundreds of them, rushing into the city with weapons raised and victory cries on their lips. They are brave, they are righteous, they are doomed. The gate slams shut behind them. Vikings appear on the walls, dozens, then hundreds. They rain arrows down on the men trapped inside. The Northumbrians raise their shields, but there is no cover, no escape. Men fall, shafts sprouting from shoulders and throats. The cobblestones turn slick with blood. Then the Vikings attack from the sides. They pour out of buildings, out of alleys, out of hiding places we did not know existed. They hit the Northumbrian flanks with axes and swords, screaming their battle cries, and the shield wall collapses. It is not a battle, it is a slaughter. I watch men I know die. I watch Ealdorman Wulfstan take an axe to the face. I watch Thegn Ethelwine cut down 3 Vikings before a spear takes him in the kidney. I watch the banners fall, one by one, trampled into the mud. And I watch the kings. Osbert fights like a man possessed. His sword is red to the hilt, his mail torn, his face a mask of blood and fury. He kills Vikings with every stroke, clearing space around him, rallying his men with wordless roars. But there are too many. For every heathen he cuts down, 2 more take their place. Ella is beside him, back to back, fighting with the same desperate courage. The usurper and the rightful king, united in death, if not in life. A Viking with a bearded axe, one of the leaders, I think, perhaps Halfdan, cuts through the press toward Osbert. The king sees him coming. He sets his feet. He raises his sword. They meet in a clash of iron that rings across the city. Osbert is good, but the Viking is better. 3 strokes, and Osbert's sword is knocked aside. The axe comes down, biting deep into the junction of his neck and shoulder. The king drops to his knees. He tries to rise. The axe comes down again. Ella sees Osbert fall. He howls, rage, grief, despair, and throws himself at the Viking. But he is already wounded, already bleeding from a dozen cuts. He does not make it 3 steps before a spear takes him in the back. He falls across Osbert's body. The 2 kings, enemies in life, dying together in the mud. The Northumbrian army breaks. Men throw down their weapons and run for the gates, screaming for mercy. The Vikings give none. They chase them through the streets, cutting them down as they flee, until the gutters run red and the screams fade into silence. I cannot watch anymore. I sink down in the tower, my back against the wall, and I weep. Not for the kings, they chose this. Not for the army, they knew the risks. I weep for York, for the city I loved, for the world that was and will never be again. The killing goes on for hours. Long after the Northumbrian army is destroyed, long after the last warrior falls, the Vikings roam the streets, finishing the wounded, looting the dead. I hear them singing, joyful, triumphant songs in their harsh language. They have won a great victory. They have slain 2 kings. They have ended Northumbria as an independent kingdom, and they are celebrating. I remain in the tower until dark. When I finally descend, the minster is full again, but not with refugees, with Vikings. They have dragged tables back in, laid out a feast on them. Roasted meat, looted wine, bread they did not bake. They eat and drink and laugh, while the bodies of our dead lie unburied in the streets outside. I try to leave unseen, but one of them spots me. A young warrior with a fresh cut across his cheek, still grinning from the battle. He says something in Norse and the others turn to look. Ivar is there. He stands near the altar, a cup of wine in his hand, his mail still spattered with blood. When he sees me, he smiles. "The priest," he says, "still alive, still watching." I say nothing. What is there to say? He walks toward me, his boots echoing on the stone. "Your kings are dead," he says. "Your army is destroyed. Your God did not save you. What do you think now, priest? Do you still believe?" I meet his eyes. "I believe," I say quietly, "that you have won a battle, not a war." He laughs. "Perhaps, but we have also won a city, and we will hold it. Your people will serve us. Your children will learn our language. In a generation, they will forget they were ever Saxon. They will be ours, or you will be ours," I say. "You will take our land, our wealth, our women, but you will also take our God. And when you do, you will become like us, Saxon with different names." For a moment, he looks almost thoughtful. Then he shakes his head. "Perhaps," he says again, "but not today." He turns back to his men, dismissing me. I am not worth killing. I am not worth fearing. I leave the minster and walk through the city. Bodies lie everywhere. I recognize faces. People I knew, people I prayed with, people I buried when they died of sickness or age or childbirth. Now they are just meat, left to rot in the streets. I find Godric among the dead. He is near the eastern gate, his sword still in his hand, a Viking spear through his chest. His eyes are open, staring at the sky. I kneel beside him and close them. "You were right," I whisper. "Better to die trying." But I do not know if I believe that. In the days that follow, the Vikings consolidate their hold. They install a puppet king, Ecgbert, a minor thane who was willing to betray his people for power. He will rule Northumbria in name, while the Vikings rule in fact. They divide the land among themselves, parceling out estates to their warriors. They bring their families, their slaves, their craftsmen. York ceases to be a Saxon city and becomes something new. Jorvik, capital of a Viking kingdom. Some of us adapt. We learn their language, trade with them, even marry them. Others resist, quietly, desperately, hopelessly. A few escape, fleeing south to Mercia or Wessex, carrying tales of the Great Heathen Army and the fall of York. I do neither. I stay in the Minster. The Vikings do not need it for storage anymore, and they do not care if a single priest haunts its ruins. I clean the blood from the stones. I gather the scattered pages of the books they burned. I bury the dead when I am allowed, and I remember. I remember Father Cuthbert, who believed God would protect us. I remember Brother Osric, who died defending an altar that could not defend him. I remember Godric and Edgith and all the others who fought and died because they believed, truly believed, that righteousness would prevail. I remember the two kings, lying together in the mud, united at last in death. I remember the sound of burning parchment, the whisper of prayers turning to ash. Years pass. The Great Heathen Army moves on, south to Mercia, east to East Anglia. Ivar disappears from history, dead or gone to Ireland. Halfdan stays in York, ruling as a king in all but name. The city thrives, trade flourishes, churches are rebuilt, though they serve a different congregation now. Saxons and Danes together, worshipping in a language that is neither one nor the other. I grow old. My hair grays. My hands shake when I write, but I still remember. In 867, the Vikings defeated 2 armies in a single year. They killed 2 kings. They ended Saxon rule in Northumbria. Historians will say it was inevitable, that our kingdoms were weak, divided, corrupt, that the Vikings were stronger, more organized, more ruthless. Maybe they are right, but I was there. I saw it happen. I watched a city fall because its kings were too proud to defend it. I watched men die because they believed in honor more than survival. I watched a world end, not with a final battle between good and evil, but with a gate left open and an army too eager to rush through it. That is the truth of history, not glory, not righteousness, just men making choices and the blood that follows. I am writing this in the scriptorium, in the Minster of St. Peter, in the city that was once York and is now Jorvik. It is the year 873. I am old. I will not live much longer. But before I die, I want someone to know what happened here. I want someone to remember that we existed, that we fought, that we mattered. Even if we lost, I can hear them outside. Danes and Saxons, arguing in the market, haggling over fish and wool. Children playing in the streets, shouting in a hybrid tongue that would have sounded alien to their grandparents. The Minster bells ring for vespers, calling the faithful to prayer. The world has moved on. It always does. But I am still here, in the corner where I hid while Father Cuthbert died. I am still watching, still remembering, still listening for the sound that burning parchment makes. That whisper, almost gentle, as everything you believed in turns to ash.